What's up, good people? How we doing? I'm squeezing out all the energy I possibly can to do this show. My last show, Back to the Classics, the cinematic movie podcast that takes you back to the iconic films of 20 years ago. I'm your guy, Jay Alonzo. With me, of course, is
Danger Neff, Dave Danger Neff. Partner, you're on the mend here. What's going on?
Say again?
You're on the mend here. What's going on?
Yeah, man. Yeah. You get done with one procedure, you got to go do another. So, I'll probably explain later, but today is going to be my last show. No, not my last show. Relax. It is my vacation show beginning today. After this show, I'll be gone for a month. Dave's going to be riding this thing out. And a special guest coming up pretty soon, but have to nurse my little owie here. And I'll be back to 100% in no time.
Very, very cool. Glad to see that you're actually doing well. I didn't want to post anything into the group until mainly because Jay didn't even tell us anything about what was going on. Boo on you. But once I kind of put the pieces together about what exactly was going on, I wanted to kind of give Jay his privacy on it, and whatever he wanted to announce, I'll let him speak on that and whatnot. But anyways, let's move on.
But I am good though. For those who are like, what's wrong with Jay? Jay's good. I'm beyond good. Trust me. But it's just
great.
Get done. They got done.
Looking good, baby. All right.
Today's movie. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is my first time watching it. I've never seen it.
What?
I'm not gonna lie to you. My first time watching it.
Have you seen the others?
I've seen Temple of Doom, and I've seen the trash one with Shia LaBeouf.
You haven't seen The Last Crusade?
No.
The Last Crusade is my favorite one of those. Please go watch The Last Crusade.
I will. We're taking it back to 1981. We're wrapping up 80s in April. Shout out to everybody who's been rocking with us for 80s in April. It's been a blast of a time. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Indiana Jones
release date.
Lost Ark.
Huh?
Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's a long title. Original release date, June 12th of 1981. Shares opening weekend with Clash of the Titans, The Cannonball Run, and History of the World, Part 1. Production budget, $20 million with a box office total of $389.9 million. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Winner of 5 Academy Awards.
That's correct.
So 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, Dave. How you feel about that?
It's a little low. This is a perfect movie. This is a perfect movie. First and foremost, I want to congratulate us for a second before we jump into this. Raiders of the Lost Ark is the oldest movie we have done up to this point. We have not broken a movie that has crossed the 40-year mark ever before. And this movie turns 40 years old basically in a couple of months. By the time some of y'all get to watching this, it'll be 40 years old. When you get to the anniversary and all that, and there's a lot to love about. Raiders. A couple of things on Raiders. First and foremost, the idea of Raiders of the Lost Ark actually came from a conversation from a weekend stay with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. Now, this is more of a Steven Spielberg film, but this is really the product of both of them working together, which you don't hear that quite often happening anymore. Where two directors kind of work on the same project together. The most recent one I can think of is actually Alita: Battle Angel, when he had both James Cameron and Rich Rodriguez kind of put both of their takes on here. But there is a lot to really like about Raiders. There's a lot to love about. About it 40 years later. There's just a real cool about it because you feel like you're learning stuff because they do pull a lot of real facts in this. But at the same time, you understand this is a movie and it's made for your entertainment. For this being your first time, what was your take on it?
I'm not gonna lie to you. The first opening 15 minutes is exciting. It's super exciting. It almost feels like a theme park ride.
A little bit.
What I'm saying? Like,
that's why how right?
Things kind of just start happening, like the big ball and shit. Like, okay, so this roller coaster. I get it. It's cool.
Right.
It's classic Spielberg. And in a way, it's classic George Lucas as well. Just kind of seeing how things kind of played out and how charismatic and like cool Harrison Ford is as Indy, and how they call him Indy. They don't call him Indiana Jones. They call him Indy.
Right.
I'm like, all right, cool. And for not for nothing, I've never seen this movie because I didn't want to watch it. I just never saw it. Like Temple of Doom, I've seen. Indiana Jones and My Son Smokes Crack. I saw that one, and I've never seen Raiders. So
that's so weird that you watch the two that are probably the most divisive with fans. Obviously, the fourth one has problems altogether. The second one, keep in mind, each of these movies are PG movies. Temple of Doom is a PG movie. That's not PG-13.
Right.
So there's a lot of darkness that comes because you see a guy's heart get ripped out in Temple of Doom. In Raiders, the opening scene, you see some craziness that kind of happen. What I love so much about Raiders is that they're very willing to kind of showcase the world. I mean, if you really think about everything that you go through an academy, you go through kind of a jungle area with a whole bunch of water. I'm not spoiling anything for anybody here at this point.
40 years later, not doubt it.
No. You have a mountain filled with snow. You go into the hot desert of Cairo. You're really getting out there and kind of really exploring the world, and it just kind of showcases it really, really cool. Especially when you consider they were pretty hard line in making sure that they got the right feel and the right feel of how the Nazis kind of were in this movie, which is something that really makes us great. At the end of the day, you want to see Harrison Ford beat the crap out of some Nazis, and he does that a lot. Now,
I mean, he does it in spades, but for this to be a PG movie in '81, it's Nazi heavy.
It's super Nazi heavy.
It's Nazi heavy.
Now, one of the things I'd love to hear, and it's probably the most recent. It's the most recent joke about the movie. And I don't know if you've ever caught this, but in The Big Bang Theory, which ended its run not that long ago, they brought up there's a specific episode, and it's a fantastic episode because it kind of brings the problem of the film, which is once the movie is actually been shown to the girlfriend who had never seen it before, she gives her opinion, and her opinion is plain and simple: if Indiana Jones is not in this movie, the outcome is still the same. But there is no point to Indiana Jones in this film whatsoever. The Nazis would still find this thing, and they would still find a location to open up the Ark of the Covenant to do so. And a lot of us Indiana Jones fans
what they do
had a
is
problem with that, but
it just kind of proves you like an archaeologist's job can be done by anybody.
Well, kind of. I mean, you definitely need to learn. Need to know a lot.
I mean, you need to know certain stuff, but if it just kind of boils down to me pushing a button,
right.
I don't really need any other shows, but okay.
So let's get into this movie. This movie kicks off in a jungle-like area, filmed in Hawaii. This is in Kauai, Hawaii, in which there's an idol that's trying to be presented, and it kind of starts off super secretive and a little bit dark. You're not really sure how to kind of feel about everybody. You just feel like they're searching for stuff. And here's what
even though seeing Alfred Molina, I'm like, yeah, he's bad.
Well, to be fair, this was Alfred Molina's first ever role. This was his first acting performance and first ever role in anything. So you see Molina, you get a guy that kind of gets like freaked out over a statue as it's a warning. He starts screaming at the top of his lungs and runs away. When you kind of get where you also get a guy that tries to early betray the group when a whip cracks and knocks the gun right out of his hand. And this is our hero, Indiana Jones, played by a very young Harrison Ford. A Harrison Ford that is 3 years removed. That's 3 years removed from the first Star Wars movie. And there's a lot to love about Indy because he's knowledgeable, he's passionate about what he does, but he is an asshole mostly to basically anybody else. Like, he's a jerk. And
he loves his theme song because like that theme song's played throughout the movie.
Absolutely, and that's very much Spielberg like kind of taking this. As they kind of start exploring this, Alfred Molina, whose character's name is Sadipo, they first enter into the cave, and the first thing that happens to Sadipo is a whole bunch of tarantulas kind of fall on Indy. And when I say that this man's back is covered in tarantulas, it was covered in tarantulas. Clearly close to, man, at least 30 tarantulas were all on this guy's back, crawling all over him. And that's his first role. And on the first day of the job, even Spielberg clearly said, that's exactly what we did to him. Like that was his baptism by fire to kind of see how exactly he would do. Of course, then he brushes him off and goes down a little bit towards the cave, and he sees a light coming down, and he kind of notices it, and he kind of crawls under it, and he says to him, don't go into the light. And he goes and he kind of swings his hand at the light when a wall of spikes basically comes out with a guy who's currently dead and has decomposed at this point into there. And of course, Molina starts screaming at the top of his lungs. They use the whip to kind of cross over a pitfall, and it looks like the two of them are really going to figure this out. And you get one of the most famous scenes in movie history whatsoever, which is you have Indy after crossing a trapped room where if you step on the wrong floor plate, a bunch of arrows kind of comes out at you, where he sees this idol. And it's a really cool scene because he pulls out a bag of sand and he goes and he's basically eyeballing the weight of this thing because he knows it's on a pressure plate. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a tense moment as he kind of reaches both hands over. He lets go of a little bit of sand in there, thinking that maybe his bag is too heavy, and he just quickly replaces it. Like very, very, very sudden. Nothing, sleight of handish. And Indy, in pure Harrison Ford arrogance, which he does a lot.
Oh yeah.
In these roles. Kind of, twirls the idol in his hand, and it starts to sink, and the walls start to crumble, and this thing is trapped. Everything is about to come down, and Indy straight up goes, and he just starts taking off. Arrows are shooting at him. Sadipo has straight up left, taking the whip and crossed. Of course, he then says, "Throw me the idol, and I'll throw you the whip," which Indy, of course, does. And of course, he just kind of lets go of the whip, as that was never his intention to let Indy kind of get away with it. And Indy goes and he kind of dives over, and after once again arrogantly pulling on a tree root and saw that kind of slips, he's able to kind of pull himself up, grab his whip, and as he turns, Sadipo has been stabbed through that wall of spears.
And the way that they reveal that is crazy because he's just kind of like.
Right. And the fact that they did an up and down shot afterwards where it was clear this thing went through everything, like literally everything of Sadipo, it was rather fascinating. PG. Anyways, as he escapes, you get the now famous scene, of course, of the rolling boulder that just starts kind of to chase him. Now, obviously, it looked like he probably could have gone off to the side, but he dives out of his way where the natives of that country are waiting for him, and you get the introduction of Renee Belloc, who is played by one of our favorite actors. More in our time, Paul Freeman. Which who else has he played, Jay?
Paul Freeman has played Ivan Ooze.
He's Ivan Ooze!
And he's like, I don't like him as Paul Freeman. I love him as Ivan Ooze, and he's also in Double Team as well.
He is in Double Team. But Ivan Ooze. So Ivan Ooze, or Renee Belloc, then says, "It's like I always tell you. You keep getting the stuff, and I'll happily take away the things that you give me." Indy somehow escapes, of course, and he's calling out.
I'm gonna take another quack at it. Splat.
And he goes and he escapes on a plane hosted by his buddy Jock. And here's again, this is a really funny scene because you're getting Indy that's running down and he's screaming out, "Jock, Jock, get the plane started, Jock, get the plane started." Jock's over here fishing. Like he's trying to straight up catch fish, and he actually considers trying to reel in this fish real quick when he's like, whatever. He just kind of throws the whole pole and starts up the plane. As it go and fly away, you get the little tidbit that Indy is afraid of snakes, as Jock's snake is kind of sitting in the middle of this thing.
And I felt that 100% because me and you both know I am scared shitless of snakes. So when that scene pops up, in most movies that have like a snake scene, I'm typically like that type. But what Indy does, Indy has I'm skipping ahead, but Indy has that fish stare down with the snake. Is like, get out of his face, man. You know? Oh, I hate snakes with a passion. I really do.
So because he missed out on the idol, he of course makes his way back. He makes his way back to America, where he's teaching at a university, which I'm pretty sure is Stanford. They kind of like make it seem like it's Stanford, or at least it's a San Francisco like university. Mm-hmm. And he's explaining. You can tell that he's very well knowledgeable into archaeology and historical sites, as his name is, of course, Dr. Henry Indiana Jones Jr., technically. But you won't find that out for another 2 movies, Jay.
Just to be clear, we don't get Sean Connery until
the 3rd movie. And it's the only movie that he's in, although there is a nod to him, obviously, in the 4th. When you get the introduction to probably one of the most underrated characters of the group, mind you, as Indy is kind of saying, he's dressed to the nines. He's looking great. You got a girl that's literally written the words "love you" on her eyelashes as she's kind of blinking at him, and he's kind of like confused at first. When Marcus Brody, played by Denholm Elliott, a museum creator and one of Jones's loyal friends, kind of walks in. Class ends, and they said, and
that's Coleman from Trade Places.
Yeah, absolutely. After trying to possibly bargain to get back the idol because he knows exactly where it's at, Instead, Brody's like, "Don't worry about that. We have a big thing to kind of talk about. There's 2 men here that came here to see you." We get the introduction to these 2 American officers that have some questions about a former teacher that Indiana was under, Abner Ravenwood. Mm-hmm. And Abner Ravenwood was a well-known archaeologist as well, with more closer findings to biblical items at all. And they decide to kind of share a little bit of information. The information basically stating that that there's a discussion that they're trying to find about a lost city called Tanis. Now, in real life, Tanis, you can go to the ruins of it. They're just outside of Cairo. It's a very real place. But the idea was that Tanis was the resting place of the lost Ark of Christ. This Ark used to contain the broken tablets of the 10 Commandments, as well as a little bit of manna, as well as something else I can't quite remember. But it was also supposed to be depicted as a weapon of force, or at least something of supernatural power. Right. You know, that they weren't exactly sure what it was going to happen, but they did kind of go based upon legends of what it could possibly be. when they find out that Nazi German forces have actually discovered the lost city of Tanis just outside of Cairo. Now, here's the thing. Tanis is still a full city, so they're basically excavating a whole city, which is going to take a long time for them to do so. But really, they're interested in one area, and that is the map room. The map room would tell you where the Ark is actually buried in the city of Tanis. And for that to do so, they needed a specific headpiece, that would then be able to tell you exactly where to go for the map room once you put it into the map room. I'll explain more in a bit. So they decided to choose Indy. To go ahead and kind of lead this exploration. And Indy knows that the best place to go is to follow where Abner Ravenwood would be, which is located in Nepal, where a former lover of his, played by Karen Allen, Marion Ravenwood, who has a great introduction. This introduction is so legendary for a female character. It's insane. Marion is sitting at the bar that she owns, and she's in the middle of a drinking contest with this other bar patron, who I can assume just looks like a fat Gene Wilder. And they're going shot for shot. And I don't know if you counted the amount of shot glasses that they had over there, but it was somewhere in the ballpark range of like 25 to 30 shots that they were both.
Oh, yeah. I caught that when I see it popped up. I'm like, oh, they're drinking.
And lo and behold, this would be a big thing. This would be a good thing, foreshadowing later on why this would be a good thing for Marion to have. So she's going shot for shot, and on her last shot, it seemed like she was getting ready to pass out when she hulks out basically and is able to recover her wits and slams down the shot, where this guy goes and takes his shot and passes out almost immediately afterwards. Like he's done. So she wins a whole bunch of money from that. In walks in Indiana, and it seemed like a very bitter relationship.
Right.
Apparently something happened where a relationship, it wasn't really explained, but basically Indy left her after what seemed like she wanted a longer commitment, and he probably didn't seem that way. It had been 10 years, so who knows?
Right.
When he asked for the headpiece, because he knows that Abner has excavated that artifact. Now, maybe Marion didn't know what that headpiece was, but after some bargaining, she says to come back tomorrow and go ahead and do so. And he leaves, where she reveals that she's been carrying this headpiece around her neck, places it onto kind of a little rack. And of course, almost immediately after she places it in, a whole bunch of Nazis decide to walk right in, because on the flight over, a Nazi spy had been following Dr. Jones to Nepal and decides to kind of try to figure out exactly what's going on. And you get the introduction. Yeah. And you get the introduction to, well, you actually never figure out his name. He's called Mac, but his actual name's last name is Todd, which in German sounds like death. And this guy's about as creepy as hell as it gets. He comes in a Judge Doom like hat. He looks about as creepy as possible. Even super close to the end of the film, you come to find out he actually has hair underneath that cap, and it freaks you the fuck out. Like I remember it freaked me out when I saw that. And he's come in, he's super heavy, hamming it up as a villain, right?
Oh, yeah, he's chewing scene.
Sure. He's definitely chewing scene. He's kind of saying, chortling a little bit. Of course, I can offer you more, And when Marion realizes that her life is kind of in danger here, as he's getting ready to place a hot poker across her skin, after she says, "Let's be reasonable," and he's all like, "The time for being reasonable has passed." In comes in Indy and starts shooting up the place. Now,
right? Yeah, every time
a fight ensues. That's all I'm really going to say. A fight ensues, and They kind of go back and forth with each other, with obviously our heroes winning it, with Ertoth basically getting his hand burned, imprinted with one half of the side of the medallion because he tried to find it, and it's engraved in his hand. It's disgusting to look at, actually. So figuring that out, and after the bar burns down, Marion says, "I'm going with you because you owe me a bar." And they decide to travel out to Egypt, where they are staying with Jonathan Rhys-Davies' family, and he's better known as Salah. Salah is an Egyptian excavator and an old acquaintance of Jones, even though the movie doesn't really explain that. Right. And I gotta be honest, the minute that you get Salah and Jones together, this movie's masculinity ramps up because there's just a coolness about both of them. Like the way that Jonathan Rhys-Davies speaks, it's not out of stupidity or anything, and he's not kind of being the weirdo sidekick in this case. He's speaking as an equal, and not only that, but he's speaking. I don't want to say intelligently, but effectively, basically. Like Indy, if they don't have this to the map room, just the way that he's kind of portraying everything. There's a lot to really love about the masculinity that kind of comes out of it. In fact, it's a big talking point with this movie because it kind of gives that macho male action hero that's conveyed by Jones. And because of that, you can really see that later on in movies like Lethal Weapon. You can see that in movies like Die Hard, and because actually during this time, and I kind of want to hit this a little bit, during this time, there was a growing feminism that was kind of coming in. And it almost felt like Hollywood was like, no, we're not ready for that. And decided to redo this with Jones and of course, Jonathan Rhys-Davies. So they kind of come to an almost cut that out scene. I can totally see why it would be considered cut that out to kind of lessen the time, but it kind of also grows the legend of Indiana Jones as well, as Marion and Indy decide to kind of explore the city of Cairo. And they go and they're being playful and flirty. And at a certain point, they get attacked by a whole bunch of bandits, and Marion decides to try to escape. And one of the places that she tries to escape, by the way, along this route, there's this fucking monkey that's clearly not supposed to be part of this group, but they think the monkey is friendly, but apparently it's trained to say Hail Hitler.
Well trained, by the way.
Yeah, well trained to say Hail Hitler, by the way, which is a little weird. As any kind of fights off these bandits, Marion gets kidnapped. At one point, you get probably the most famous scene in the movie, and it does kind of require a little bit of behind the scenes here. At this point, they had been shooting in Cairo for 4.5 weeks. What was supposed to be a 6-week thing in Cairo, the humidity was awful, and on this particular day, the whole cast and crew got food poisoning from whatever they ate. Literally, Harrison Ford is barfing his guts out, apparently.
Right.
When they decide to shoot this scene of what's supposed to be this long fight of Indy with a whip and this guy with a sword, where they're kind of going back and forth. And it was exhausting until Ford comes out and just straight up says, "Why don't I just shoot the guy?" And Spielberg loved that idea so much that that's what made him to the final cut. This guy kind of shows off his sword skills, and Indy just looks exhausted from this, and he just kind of pulls out his gun and just shoots him in the chest. It just shoots him in the chest and kills him. And it grew so much the legend of Indy at that point that's almost impossible to really try to cut out this whole chasing, because it doesn't really add much to the story outside of that the Nazis are basically willing to do whatever they need to do so. Meanwhile, off screen, Davies is trying to find a guy who could interpret the markings on Marion's medallion, figure out exactly what's going on. So Marion, of course, is wound up kidnapped and is seemingly killed. Indy has a conversation with Belloc where it turns really dark for a moment, where basically he was willing to kill Belloc right then and there, thinking that Marion is dead and that he doesn't really have anything to really go on and really to go for now. But it's saved by the kids. Of course, the monkey kind of follows them. The monkey's trainer poisons a whole bunch of dates, which kind of leads into a bit of an exposition scene. But Indy's kind of holding a poisoned date, looking like he's getting ready to eat this. They come to find out.
Trainer has a very mustache twirling goatee as well.
Absolutely. So along this point, you also get the old guy who just kind of says what's going on with the markings, and basically the staff is supposed to be 72 inches long, but instead, on the back of it, it does state that that you're supposed to subtract basically 1 inch from the staff as a celebration or whatever. So whatever staff that the Nazis are basically using for this, they have the wrong size staff. So they're digging in the wrong place, which is obvious line in the movie. Of course, Sala saves Indy from the poisoned date as the monkey has died from eating these poisoned dates, and they decide to go to the excavation site. And this is one of those great scenes in the movie because there's a lot of the scenes in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark feel like extended scenes. Like you're waiting for something to kind of happen, and when that thing happens, you're also equally amazed at what exactly you're seeing.
Based on the way that thing that happened finally comes in and how smooth it is when it comes in, because typically in an indie movie, when you hear the like, it's probably some cool shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So once they get into they get the correct measurements for this, basically a staff of raw. He sets the right coordinates for it, and you get this really, really cool effect from 1981 where the sun hits this jewel correctly, and it just kind of shows like this beam of light to where the room is. And so that evening, they begin to start excavating. After, of course, a little bit of humor scene where Sala gets kind of pulled away from tossing the rope down, so he has to figure out a way to get a rope down to this particular room because he doesn't look like he's supposed to be down there. So he throws down like a whole bunch of Nazi clothes as well as a Nazi flag to kind of help pull Indy out. Just small stuff like that. This movie does a lot of. As they begin to excavate the room the chamber that they find, right, the chamber they found, the Well of Souls, is covered with snakes, totally, completely.
Which is what, and like I said, I told you that me and snakes do not have a good relationship. Matter of fact, when they're around, I get queasy. But to know that Indy knew how to deal with them, right? As far as like the spraying them with the water, kind of like brushing them like they were like dust and shit. Right. That's so bold to me. You know what I'm saying? Like it's probably the most boldest shit ever to me. Because like put me in that room, I'm shitting myself. Yeah, that's what it is.
So Sala and Indy find the resting place of the Ark when they go into there, and they pull this thing, and this thing is beautiful. It has all these engravings on it. It looks something that it looks old. It looks. I mean, the prop that they decided to use for it was just spectacular. It's very good looking, you know. And of course, in the process, Marion is trying to escape from Belloc by again doing this whole drinking game thing, until of course you get Todd that kind of comes in and kind of does whatever, because Belloc's really taking a liking into Marion. Well, they decide to throw Marion down the hole once they see that Indy has a team of people excavating and steal the Ark. And it kind of leads into this extended long chase scene, because it starts out with, first they break through the wall by breaking off the statue that they're stuck in. I don't know why they didn't kill Sala, by the way. I always thought that was kind of weird. I was like, why didn't you guys just kill him? Breaks through the wall. They kind of crawl. They crawl through the wall, and they see a plane getting ready to take off. And you get this kind of humorous, but also really gross scene of Indy fighting off two people, including whoever the guy he was fighting. That guy was a pro boxer for sure. That guy was a pro boxer. He was in a couple of things, I can tell you that. Kind of beats the shit out of Indy until he forgets that there's a plane going on with propellers, and the plane.
And for this to be PG, it got gruesome.
It got dark real quick there.
Ooh. Okay.
So
you got it completely that there was a propeller currently spinning behind them.
So of course, in this process, they blow up the plane because the plane hits a gas thing and blows itself up. So then the Nazis decide to drive it, I think, to Berlin. I don't know exactly how that route would have gone. Oh, you know what? No, they were driving back to their port. I'm sorry. They were driving back to the port. So Indy then, once again, being kind of an annoying pest at this point, decides to try to stop him as well. Takes a horse and literally hijacks a vehicle and has this really, really, really great scene that I feel like Spielberg really wanted to showcase stunt doubles in this scene because he takes over the largest vehicle that's carrying the Ark, and you got Nazi guys kind of crawling on the sides of this truck, and he's knocking him off. Then you have a guy that literally shoots Indy in the arm, and I don't know why. Whatever special effect they did there, it looked like Harrison Ford actually got shot in the arm. It grazed him. Then you have like the commanding guy, and this commanding guy basically throws Indy out of the truck right through the front.
Right.
And then he finds a way to kind of hang on. And whoever was the stunt double for whatever this scene was found a way to kind of basically hang on to, I don't know if the truck's actually moving at this point or however way they did this scene. But it looks like he kind of crawls his way underneath the truck while his body's on the ground and then starts to get dragged by the truck because, of course, the whip.
Right.
And it's a great action sequence. Like, even to this day, 40 years later, you're like, wow, that shit looks like it hurt like a motherfucker. So, of course, Indy finds a way to kind of hijack the truck and gets away from everybody after knocking everything off. He puts the Ark on a boat where you get the introduction to another kind of super late to really introduce this guy. But you get George Harris playing the actor's name is George Harris, so I'm just going to use the actor's name here. But George Harris's character, who looks like he was going to betray Indy, like he kind of had a look about him that he was just going to straight up betray him, but he never did. Captain Katanga. And the Nazis kind of come on board, of course, because they're in a submarine now. And they're able to basically hijack the Ark once again. And they also hijack Marion as well. Mm-hmm. And you kind of get this one last chase where Indy kind of shows up and the Ark is there, and he has a bazooka or a rocket launcher, and he's getting, or a bazooka really, and he's getting ready to blow up the whole thing because he just doesn't think it should happen. Belloc convinces him otherwise. He says, "We're archaeologists. This is our life's work right here. Everything that we've wanted to see is our life's work." Now, Belloc decided to try to open this thing through a Jewish ceremony, just to make sure that they knew exactly what they're presenting to the Führer. Kind of a safe idea. So you get this scene where everybody's kind of standing around this thing. Marion and Indy are both tied up, not looking at the Ark, when they decide to open the Ark, and all they see is sand inside, thinking that this has all been a waste of time, basically.
Right.
But kind of a supernatural roar happens, and Indy tells Marion to close her eyes, and whatever happens, don't open your eyes. And you get one of the most gruesome scenes ever ever done in cinematic.
So
Go
when
ahead.
this thing pops up, I was sitting out, I watched it, I was like, oh my. Oh my. You know what I'm saying? Like I was just faces are melting.
Literally, faces are melting because
Oh
these
my.
supernatural ghosts kind of come out, and it's kind of tough to say without you saying it. But whatever it was it was spirits and flames and bolts of energy that kill all the Nazis and disintegrate their bodies, including Belloc, including Belloc, Toth, and any Nazi that was basically there. But I'm telling you, people like one of the Nazis' face was straight up like shrinking, and then his skin was melting off. They showed Toth, who, super effective death, like his eyes start rolling in the back of his head, and then it was like they just sat there and just watched his face like melt off. And this is a PG movie.
I mean, it's like,
terrifying.
The camera doesn't shy away. We're watching it go from face to bone.
It's pretty terrifying to look at. In the process, of course, they open their eyes. They both Indy and Marion open their eyes and find that the area has been cleared and their bindings have been removed. So, of course, they travel back to DC. And this is always a controversial ending because it doesn't end on the happiest note. It instead ends in a note that you just kind of say, like, what was the point of that? Because the United States government does reward Jones and Marcus Brody for securing the Ark, but despite Jones' insistence, the agents state that the Ark has been moved to an undisclosed location for study by top men. But here's the thing. The top men for this would probably be Dr. Jones and Marcus Brody, because they're the people that have done probably the most research on this. And of course, they just kind of say back top men. So in a large warehouse, the Ark is crated up and stored among countless other crates, which would not be shown again until the fourth movie, obviously.
Right.
Where they kind of do the play on that. But that's Raiders, man. That's Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm glad this was your first time watching it. I really want you to watch The Last Crusade now.
I'm gonna have to.
Your thoughts of it, because
far as takeaways, I'm gonna skip takeaways today myself, so you're gonna get all of Dave's takeaways because he's much more geeked out about this than I was. That and I'm covering. So yeah. Dave, who's gonna get that guy?
It's gonna go pretty easy then. If it's just me, then it will go to Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford. There's very, very, very few actors out there that can say that they've had one iconic role. This was Harrison Ford's other iconic role besides Han Solo. Indy is everything you kind of love about an action hero. He kind of takes no shit from nobody. He is charming in some ways. He also can be very funny in his action comedy. He's a well-loved character that 40 years later, like, you have people pining and still pining for this fifth one to be released. And I'm of the opinion that I'm kind of okay either way. But Ford has clearly taken two beloved roles, and people love to see him in this getup of doing this stuff. So yeah, I go Sandy.
That chick work.
There's not a lot of chicks in this movie.
Exactly.
There's really only two chicks I can really talk about. One is Marion, and the other one is actually Salah's wife. But in this case, it will go to Marion. Karen Allen does kind of play a little bit of damsel in distress, but unlike Temple of Doom, in which that character was just bad, instead Karen Allen like found ways to make herself useful in some way, shape, or form. Like, she had her own traits, her own personality. Now, I'm not going to say that she was entirely important to the story, but she's the one that had the most chemistry with Jones as well. Definitely kind of brought out a little bit of the best of Indy, which is why she was brought back for the fourth one.
That full of work.
Toth. Pretty simplistic. The reason why is because, dude, you're first of all, Ronald Lacey is the actor's name. He clearly has seen fire everywhere. He knows this is a metal medallion, and he just straight up raw dog grabs this thing, right, and it just burns the shit out of his hand. Like, why didn't you just like touch it real quick? Why didn't you just check the temperature real quick?
No, he had to
decide.
No condom.
Especially when you're wearing all this heavy clothing. Like, right, why don't you have gloves at all? Like, why did you take your gloves off, right, if you weren't wearing gloves? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Shit. Does it hold up?
It does. 40 years later, absolutely. It's one of those movies that you can kind of go back to. Look, it's a franchise. It's a Disney ride. It's
definitely
you know the song the minute that comes on. You know what you're getting yourself into, and to be honest, you love every minute of it. Cut that out.
Cut that out.
I didn't really. There's not really much to cut out. It is a 2-hour movie. But it's also one of those 2-hour movies that doesn't really leave a lot of dry parts. Even when they're doing exposition talks, like the first exposition talk is at least interesting enough for you to kind of listen on because you really feel like you're learning something there. The second exposition talk, is kind of humorous because you're seeing that Indy's getting ready to poison himself. That's really it. The rest of it's not. It's more dialogue among characters. Vague threats and action. A lot of action in this.
Right. Iconic scene.
This is a struggle. But if anything, it has to be the opening 10 minutes of this movie, where you're really getting the character of Indy in the field. Where he's out there and he tries to figure out like the idol thing. And you come to realize this about Indy, that he's right on a lot of things, but he's also wrong a lot of the times. And then he just kind of wings the plan anyway. Right.
Indy's very cool at educated guesses.
Yes. He's very, very good at educated guesses, actually. Or at least surviving educated guesses. Because when he's wrong on an educated guess, he kind of knows how he needs to get the fuck out of there.
Well, I think I should.
Really,
yeah, I should. Yeah.
But yeah, so the opening 10 minutes, obviously you get the introduction to Melina, but all the way up to him basically escaping on the plane, you pretty much feel like how this character is going to be. There's not there, even though you get the smart side of him, the next scene afterwards, you kind of know exactly that character stays consistent throughout all 4 of his movies, where he's always just a little bit off on something. That he's always a little bit wrong, but he knows how to escape it.
Cracking that whip.
That's pretty much it. So want to do some quickest?
Let's do some quickest. Then I got my list pulled up. Let's do when Brody first goes to Indy's home to discuss the mission. Jones is dressed the way he is because he is entertaining a young woman in his bedroom. The script originally planned to show her before moving to the next scene to give Indy a more worldly persona like James Bond. However, her appearance was cut as Steven Spielberg thought that being a playboy didn't fit Indy's character.
Which is true. It actually doesn't fit Indy's character. Indy always felt Indy never jumped girl to girl within the same movie. Should I say that? He didn't have a problem dating girls. He just never jumped from girl to girl, basically. Right. This is kind of cool. Most of the body blow sounds was actually created by hitting a pile of leather jackets with a baseball bat, which, that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, it makes sense. During filming in Tunisia, nearly everyone in the cast and crew got sick except for director Steven Spielberg. It is thought that he avoided illness by eating only the food he brought with him. A lot of cans of SpaghettiOs. And you still didn't get sick? Wow.
Harrison Ford actually outran the boulder in the opening scene. Because the scene was shot twice from 5 different angles, he had to outrun this thing 10 times. Ford's stumble in the scene was deemed to look authentic and was actually left in.
So he really stumbled?
He really did.
The film was originally given an R rating because of the exploding head at the end. They didn't want the picture to be rated R, so they added layers of fire in front of his face to make it appear less graphic. Like that was this deciding call for
not the melting, but the exploding head.
Like, and you left that and gave it PG, but the exploding head that's too much.
The monkey raising his paw and saying in his own language, "Hail Hitler," was thought up by George Lucas and is one of Steven Spielberg's 2 favorite scenes. In the video box set, he says his other favorite scene is the "where it doesn't hurt" love scene on the ship. In Empire magazine, Frank Marshall said that they got the monkey to do the Nazi salute by putting a grape on a fishing pole and getting the monkey to reach for the grape, which was dangling just out of the camera range. This took about 50 takes before it actually looked like a Nazi salute. Voice artist Frank Welker provided the chattering sounds for the monkey, including the Zeke head-like chirp that the monkey gives when it raises its paw and salute. Welker later provided similar monkey chatter as Abu, the spider monkey in Disney's Aladdin, 1992.
And finally, only Indiana Jones film to be nominated for a Best Picture Oscar.
And kind of deserves it, to be honest. Like it definitely should have been in conversation. But that's
well, good people. That was Raiders of the Lost Ark, told by Dave. And this is my last show before I go on vacation. So, Dave, you do the honors. Where can they find you?
Well, you can find our show at beatnetworkonline.com. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at David Danger Neff. We do have the Back to the Classics Facebook group up and popping. So jump on that to kind of see what we've got going on there. As always, we have a whole bunch of shows that are going on. We just dropped a new show with Cinema Rehab with Duvall and the gang, Duvall and Selena there, talking about episode 5 and episode 6 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. So make sure you hop on that. This upcoming month, I tactically have one spot open. There will be some pre-recorded episodes, mainly because I will also be taking a week vacation out to Boston. But don't worry, we'll still find ways to kind of drop the show, making sure everything looks good for you guys.
And I will be popping up on the show next. Even though I'm taking next month off, but I will pop up on the show next month.
There is one show that Jay will be popping up. Our Instagram page, BTTC Podcast. Make sure you check us out there. You can follow and listen to us on basically wherever you listen to podcasts or watch podcasts. There is no way that you cannot find us, whether it's on Amazon, whether it's on Spotify, whatever. Just type in our name, Back to the Classics, and you can absolutely check us out from there. Other than that, that's pretty much all I got. Jay Alonso, where do you want people to find you if you want people to find you?
For that month, don't even look for me. But official Jay Alonso on Instagram, Jay Alonso on Twitter, and of course Jay Alonso on Facebook. You talk to me and I'll talk back. It's been fun. I've been nonstop with the show since getting out of the hospital and taking over since Dave took his vacation. And I always have my blast with the center folks. You guys are everything to me, but this is a well-deserved month off. I will miss you dearly, and I will see y'all folks for that one episode next month. Besides that, your boy is out. I'll be back in June. With that being said, this is Back to Classes. Dave will see y'all next week.
I will be here next week with a show that is going to be kind of similar to this episode that we just did, actually. I'm excited to kind of talk about it.
Oh, that's right. Well, I'm Jay Alonso. With me, of course, is
Danger Neff.
See you good folks next week.
Well, see you guys next week. Hey, have a great vacation, partner.
You take care. Sir. Appreciate it.
Peace out.